Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The emergency lights bathed Lawrence Mitchell's repair pod in an eerie crimson glow as he maneuvered through the debris field surrounding the damaged communications satellite. His experienced hands danced across the holographic controls, each movement precise despite the growing interference that made his instruments behave erratically. "Houston, we've got a situation here," Lawrence reported, keeping his Texas drawl steady despite mounting concern. "My readings are all over the place. The electromagnetic field is unlike anything in our records." Static crackled through his headset, Mission Control's response fragmenting into unintelligible bursts. The sophisticated equipment around him, worth millions of dollars and representing humanity's best space technology, began to malfunction spectacularly. A brilliant azure light suddenly erupted before him, its otherworldly radiance drowning out even the harsh emergency lighting. Lawrence's stomach lurched as reality itself seemed to twist, the very fabric of space contorting like a digital image glitching into chaos. The pod's warning system screamed in protest, their urgent alerts mixing with the sound of his own racing heartbeat. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Engineer Lawrence Mitchell. I'm losing control." His fingers flew across the emergency protocols, but nothing responded. "Something's pulling me in, some kind of spatial anomaly." The void before him split open, revealing a planet that shouldn't exist, a world of impossible beauty with crystalline mountains that caught the light of an alien sun, creating rainbow refractions across azure forests that stretched to the horizon. The pod plummeted through a purple-tinged atmosphere, heat shields blazing as they fought against the brutal forces of re-entry. Impact came with a violence that sent Lawrence's world spinning into darkness. Consciousness returned slowly, accompanied by the soft whisper of alien winds and the gentle touch of something cool against his face. Lawrence opened his eyes to find himself lying on a bed of phosphorescent moss, surrounded by the most extraordinary sight he'd ever encountered. Women. Breathtakingly beautiful women with skin the color of summer skies and tropical oceans, their features both familiar and ethereally exotic. They moved with impossible grace, their bodies perfectly proportioned in ways that made his engineer's mind struggle to comprehend the mathematics of such beauty. They spoke among themselves in a language that sounded like music given voice, their expressions ranging from curiosity to something that made his pulse quicken. One of them, with cascading silver-white hair and eyes that shifted between amethyst and gold, knelt beside him. She held up a small crystal device that hummed with internal light. "Can you understand my words now, Star-Fallen One?" she asked, her voice carrying a melodic accent that made English sound like poetry. Lawrence pushed himself up slowly, fighting back a wave of dizziness. "Yes. How is this possible?" She smiled, revealing teeth that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. "Universal Translator, though we call it the Voice Bridge. I'm Arona, daughter of the Twilight Clan. You've landed on Moria, though many know it as Azuria." Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Your arrival, it's more significant than you could possibly understand." Before Lawrence could question this cryptic statement, another woman approached. She carried herself with unmistakable authority, her azure skin decorated with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the strange light. "I am Treya, elder of the Southern clans," she announced, her voice rich with gravitas. "The prophecies spoke true. The Star-Fallen One arrives as darkness gathers." Prophecies? Lawrence's scientific mind rebelled against the mystical implications. "Look, I appreciate the warm welcome, but there's been a mistake. I'm just an engineer who got caught in some kind of spatial anomaly." A harsh laugh cut through the gathering. "Indeed, a mistake," came a male voice that carried the chill of Arctic winds. The crowd parted to reveal a tall figure whose presence commanded immediate attention. His skin was so pale a blue it bordered on white, with eyes like frozen glaciers. He moved with predatory grace, each step calculated and precise. "Nord," Arona whispered, her tone carrying a warning. Champion of the Frost Valleys and ambitious beyond his abilities. Nord's cold gaze swept over Lawrence dismissively. "Surely you don't believe this soft-skinned outsider fulfills the ancient writings. The trial of ascension approaches and you would consider him worthy." "The trial determines our next leader," Arona explained quickly to Lawrence. "But Nord speaks out of fear. He knows the prophecy better than most." Treya raised her hand, silencing the growing murmurs. "The trial begins at moonrise. All eligible candidates must participate." "I'm not eligible for anything," Lawrence protested, struggling to his feet. "I need to contact Earth and repair my pod." Two women emerged from the crowd, their presence bringing an immediate hush. They wore shimmering robes that seemed woven from starlight, their movements perfectly synchronized. "Your vessel is beyond salvation," the first one, Asia, spoke with quiet certainty. Her eyes held ancient wisdom. "The crossing between worlds has reduced it to little more than scrap." "And you cannot return through the veil," added Ella, her voice like warm honey. "Not until the prophecy runs its course." Lawrence felt trapped between rationality and the impossible situation before him. "Look, I appreciate all this, but—" His words cut off as Treya stepped forward and stumbled. Without thinking, Lawrence moved, catching her with the instincts honed from years of zero-gravity training. They spun together in what looked like a practiced dance move. The gathered crowd gasped. Arona's eyes widened in shock. "The first dance," she whispered. "You've initiated the trial's opening ritual." Nord's face contorted with rage. "This is sacrilege. He knows nothing of our ways." "The signs are clear," Asia declared. "The Star-Fallen One has accepted the challenge through deed, if not word." Ella moved forward, her robes catching the light of the setting sun. "The trial consists of 3 tests: grace, wisdom, and strength. They must be completed before the 3 moons align." Lawrence found himself drawn into a whirlwind of preparation. Arona stayed by his side, explaining their customs as attendants dressed him in ceremonial garments that seemed to shift color with his movements. "The grace trial tests your ability to move in harmony with our world," she whispered as they walked toward a crystalline amphitheater. "Wisdom challenges your mind and judgment. Strength—" She hesitated. "Well, Nord has never lost a trial of strength." The first trial began as darkness fell. Lawrence discovered that his space training gave him unexpected advantages. The low-gravity movements required for the grace trial weren't unlike the choreographed maneuvers he'd practiced for spacewalks. To everyone's surprise, especially Nord's, Lawrence completed the intricate dance patterns with natural fluidity. His years of precise movement in zero gravity translated perfectly to the ritual's requirements. The wisdom trial proved more challenging. Ancient riddles and moral dilemmas tested not just intelligence but understanding of their culture. Lawrence relied on his engineering problem-solving skills and, surprisingly, found parallels between their philosophical questions and humanity's own struggles with technology and progress. When he chose to sacrifice personal gain for communal benefit in the final riddle, many nodded in approval. Nord's solutions had all favored personal power. The strength trial, however, was something else entirely. It took place in an arena carved from living crystal, where the very ground seemed to pulse with energy. "Remember," Arona touched his arm before he entered, "strength here isn't measured only in muscle." The trial began with Nord demonstrating devastating power, his pale blue form moving like a winter storm as he shattered crystal pillars with precise strikes. When Lawrence's turn came, he approached differently. Instead of matching Nord's destruction, he demonstrated control and efficiency, using leverage and calculated force to achieve the same results with minimal energy. The deciding moment came when both men faced a seemingly impossible challenge, moving a massive crystal sphere up an inclined plane. Nord attacked it directly, straining against its weight. Lawrence studied it briefly, then located specific points where applied pressure created a rolling momentum. As the sphere reached the top, Lawrence caught Nord's murderous glare. This wasn't over, not by far. The ceremony concluded with Lawrence's unexpected victory. As the three moons aligned overhead, Treya formally declared him their new leader, much to Nord's barely contained fury. Later that night, Lawrence sat in his chambers, his mind a swirl of confusion and disbelief. The events of the last several hours were beyond comprehension. An impossible planet, an ancient prophecy, and somehow he had become the center of it all. His entire life as an engineer had been rooted in logic and the laws of physics, but here, reality bent to forces that defied everything he understood. The room around him was an architectural marvel, crystalline walls that pulsed gently with an internal glow, the energy within them shifting in time with his heartbeat, as if alive. It felt surreal, like a waking dream he couldn't shake. He ran his hand over the smooth surface of the bed, its texture soft and cool under his fingers. The luxury of it all contrasted sharply with the intensity of the trials he had just completed. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Before he could respond, Asia and Ella entered the room, their presence commanding and graceful. They were both clad in light ceremonial robes, the fabric shimmering in the glow of the room as though woven from stars. The two women radiated beauty and power, their movements fluid and in perfect harmony, like two forces of nature in tandem. "The trial is over," Asia said, her voice a smooth, melodic whisper as she stepped closer to Lawrence, her gaze steady and unwavering. "But our traditions have only just begun." Ella followed, her soft smile playing at the corners of her lips as she approached him. There was something playful, even mischievous in her eyes. "There are other responsibilities of leadership, Star-Fallen One. You must learn to lead us in all ways," she added, her tone laced with invitation. Lawrence shifted uncomfortably in his seat, suddenly aware of the intimacy of the moment. The tension in the room was palpable, but it wasn't the kind of tension he had felt in the trials earlier. This was something far more personal, far more primal. His breath caught in his throat as Asia moved closer, her hands gliding across his chest with a feather-light touch, her lips curving into a smile that spoke of ancient secrets. "My lord," Asia whispered, her voice low and sultry. "It would be unbefitting for a leader to sleep in the cold. Allow me to warm your bed." Her fingers grazed his arm as she slowly began to undo the ties of her shimmering robe. Lawrence's eyes widened, unable to tear his gaze away as the fabric slid from her shoulders, revealing her flawless azure skin beneath, shimmering like the surface of a calm ocean at sunset. With a smooth, deliberate movement, she allowed the robe to fall completely, pooling at her feet before she gracefully slipped onto his bed, her body a vision of perfection against the soft surface. Ella let out a soft laugh, drawing his attention back to her. "It seems I've grown clumsy, my lord," she said, feigning a stumble as the delicate fabric of her own robe slipped from her body, falling to the floor in a seemingly accidental display. She bent down slowly, her movements calculated as she retrieved the garment, her back arching in a way that left little to the imagination. Lawrence's mouth went dry. He was at a loss for words, his mind spinning between disbelief and undeniable attraction. The logical part of him screamed that this was insane, but another part, A much more primal part was mesmerized by the beauty before him. "Oh dear," Ella purred, standing back up and straightening her posture with a knowing smile. "I've been so careless. Perhaps I need to be punished for my misstep, my lord." Her eyes sparkled as she moved closer to him, her voice dropping to a teasing whisper. "It is important to rule us with a firm hand. You wouldn't want your subjects to think they can act without consequence, would you?" Lawrence's heart raced. The playful yet serious undertone of her words sent shivers down his spine. His mind flashed through 100 different responses, but none seemed adequate. The room seemed to close in around him, the weight of the moment pressing down on his senses. The women's eyes were fixed on him, waiting. "I don't think punishment is necessary," Lawrence said, his voice unsteady, but even as he spoke, Ella's teasing smile widened. "Are you sure, my lord?" she whispered, her breath warm against his neck as she leaned in, her fingers lightly brushing his chest. "Perhaps you'd prefer to bind me, to remind me of my place." Asia, still lounging on the bed, stretched languidly, her bare form radiant in the dim light. "Or perhaps," she mused, her voice dripping with sensuality, "you'd prefer something more traditional. A whip, perhaps?" Lawrence blinked, his thoughts a maelstrom of confusion, desire, and amusement. The playful yet dangerous dance the women were weaving around him had him on edge, and yet he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward them. He had faced unimaginable challenges in the trials today, and now this was a test of a different sort. Asia sat up slowly, her movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring each second. "You are our leader now, Lawrence," she said softly, her gaze locking onto his. "You must prove yourself worthy in all things. Our people require a leader who is not only strong in mind and body, but also in passion." Ella's hand moved to his shoulder, sliding down his arm with a feather-light touch. "You wouldn't want to disappoint us, would you?" A deep breath escaped Lawrence's lungs. He had never imagined himself in a situation like this, certainly not with two stunningly beautiful women from another world. But as surreal as it was, he couldn't deny the desire that had been building within him. He wasn't the type to shy away from a challenge, and this too was a challenge. His decision made, Lawrence stood and turned toward the bed where Asia lay waiting, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "I suppose there are some traditions that I should honor," he said, his voice steady now, his hesitation gone. Asia smiled, her expression one of approval and satisfaction as he approached her. "That's the spirit, my lord," she purred, her fingers reaching for him as he joined her on the bed. Ella moved in behind him, her hands running gently across his shoulders as she leaned in to whisper in his ear. "Perhaps we should make sure you understand just how important it is to lead with confidence. After all, a leader who hesitates is a leader who falls." Her words were like a spark, igniting the tension between them. What followed was a blur of passion and connection. The teasing and coy smiles melted into something far more intimate, far more primal. The air in the room was thick with the scent of desire, their bodies intertwining as they explored one another in the soft glow of the crystalline walls. Lawrence found himself lost in the moment, the logical, rational part of him fading away as instinct took over. Asia's soft skin against his, her whispered words in his ear, the warmth of her body as they moved together in perfect rhythm, it was intoxicating. And Ella, with her mischievous grin and knowing touch, added an element of playful seduction that only heightened the experience. They moved together in harmony, no words needed as they communicated through touch and sensation. Lawrence had never experienced anything like this, a connection so deep, so immediate. Every touch, every breath was in sync, as if they had been waiting for this moment, for him, for longer than he could understand. The night stretched on, filled with moments of intensity and passion. The tension that had filled the room at the beginning of the evening gave way to something deeper, something that felt almost sacred. And by the time the moons had shifted in the sky, Lawrence lay between the two women, their bodies curled against his, the weight of their presence grounding him in a reality that was still too strange to fully grasp. He had come to this world by accident, but now, in this moment, it didn't feel like an accident at all. Dawn broke over the crystalline spires of the azure temple, painting the sky in impossible shades of lavender and gold. Lawrence sat in the meditation chamber, his mind still reeling from the previous night's cultural exchange. Treya had insisted on beginning his education early, despite his obvious exhaustion. "Your position demands understanding," Treya said, her elegant form settling across from him on a cushion of bioluminescent moss. "Our people face challenges beyond mere leadership succession." Lawrence tried to focus on her words rather than the way her skin seemed to shimmer in the morning light. "I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything. The trial, these customs." He gestured vaguely, thinking of Asia and Ella's nocturnal visit. Treya's expression grew serious. "There is purpose in all our traditions, Lawrence, even those that might seem recreational to you." Before he could respond, Ella swept into the chamber, her healer's robes adorned with crystalline instruments. "Elder Treya, if I might borrow our new leader, there are matters in the archives that require his attention." Treya nodded, a knowing look passing between the women. "The morning lessons can wait. This is equally important." Ella led Lawrence through winding corridors that descended deep into the living crystal of the temple. The walls pulsed with an inner light that responded to their presence. "Our archives hold secrets," Ella explained, her usual playful demeanor replaced by professional focus. "Secrets that might explain why our people face extinction." The archive chamber took Lawrence's breath away. Holographic displays flickered between crystal columns, showing genetic sequences and population statistics he could barely comprehend. "For the past century, our births have been almost exclusively female," Ella explained, pulling up detailed charts. "The few males born are often like Nord, cold, aggressive, unlike our ancestors." Lawrence studied the data, his engineering mind clicking into gear. "These patterns aren't natural. There's some kind of external interference in your genetic code. Precisely why we need your help." Ella's fingers danced across the controls. "Your outsider's perspective, combined with your technical knowledge." A commotion from above interrupted them. Asia burst into the chamber, her warrior's grace evident in every movement. "Lawrence, we have a situation. Nord's been seen meeting with off-worlders in the crystal caves." "Off-worlders?" Lawrence's head snapped up. "I thought I was the first in centuries to come openly," Asia corrected, her eyes hard. "Others skulk in shadows, trading in flesh and misery across the stars." The implications hit Lawrence like a physical blow. "Slavers." "We've suspected Nord's involvement," Asia continued, moving closer, "but proving it has been impossible, until now." The next few days passed in a blur of investigation and education. Between Treya's lessons in tribal law and custom, Ella's genetic research, and Asia's combat training, Lawrence barely had time to breathe, yet he couldn't deny his growing attraction to each of them. Arona proved an unexpected ally, showing him hidden paths through the crystal forest where they could speak privately. "Nord's people, the Frost Valley clan, they've always been different," she explained during one such walk. "More isolated, more prone to dealing with outsiders." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of engines, definitely not native to this world. Lawrence pulled Arona behind a crystal formation as a sleek black ship descended into a hidden valley. "Slavers," Arona whispered, her body tensing. "They're getting bolder." Lawrence watched as Nord emerged from the shadows to meet the ship's crew. The pale blue man's gestures were animated, angry. Something had changed in their plans. "We need to warn the others," Lawrence said, but Arona grabbed his arm. "Wait, look." The ship's captain had emerged, a massive figure in dark armor. Even from this distance, Lawrence could see Nord's submissive body language. He wasn't in charge of this operation. He was just a pawn. Back at the temple, Lawrence gathered his inner circle. Asia paced like a predatory cat while he shared what they'd witnessed. "The timing makes sense," Ella said, consulting her crystal tablet. "Our genetic degradation began around the same time the Frost Valley clan started their exclusive trading arrangements." Treya's face darkened. "They've been poisoning our bloodline deliberately, making us dependent on outside mates, which makes us vulnerable to their real plan," Asia added, her warrior's instincts sharp. "A whole planet of beautiful, exotic women to sell to the highest bidders across the galaxy." Lawrence felt sick. His accidental victory in the trial had disrupted generations of careful planning. No wonder Nord was desperate. "We need proof," Arona insisted. "Something concrete to show the council." "I might have an idea," Lawrence said, his engineer's mind racing. "Ella, those genetic markers you showed me, they're artificial, right? If we could trace the source." Their investigation led them deep into Frost Valley territory. Lawrence found himself grateful for Asia's combat training as they dodged Nord's patrols. Ella's knowledge of genetics proved invaluable as they collected evidence, while Arona's familiarity with the crystal formations kept them hidden. But it was Treya who made the crucial discovery. "These symbols," she said, examining ancient cave markings, "they're not decorative, they're coordinates, shipping routes." Their successful infiltration didn't go unnoticed. That night, as Lawrence reviewed their findings with the council, the temple's warning crystals flashed crimson. "Multiple ships approaching," Asia announced, rushing into the chamber. "Heavy weapons signatures." Nord had made his move. The slavers weren't waiting any longer. The first explosion rocked the crystal spires. Lawrence watched in horror as massive black ships descended through the purple sky, their weapon ports glowing with deadly intent. "Get everyone to the shelter caves," he ordered, falling naturally into command. Asia and her warriors moved to defensive positions while Ella led the evacuation. Arona grabbed his arm. "Lawrence, the archive. If they destroy our genetic records—" He nodded. "Treya, coordinate the evacuation. Asia, buy us time. Ella, with me and Arona, we need to secure that data." As they raced through the chaos, Lawrence caught glimpses of the battle above. The slavers had come in force, clearly intending to take what they wanted and destroy any resistance. Nord appeared at the archive entrance, flanked by armed mercenaries. His pale blue skin seemed to glow with triumph. "You should have stayed on your own world, Lawrence," he sneered. "This could have been so much easier." Easier to sell an entire civilization into slavery? Lawrence positioned himself between Nord and the women. Is that what the Frost Valley clan has become? Traffickers? "We adapted to survive." Nord's composure cracked. "While the rest of you clung to ancient ways, we embraced galactic reality. There's no room for isolation anymore." Asia appeared silently behind Nord's group, her warriors moving like shadows. Lawrence kept him talking. "So instead of protecting your people, you sold them out? Created a genetic crisis to make them vulnerable? They'll survive." Nord's smile was cruel. "They'll just belong to new masters." The fight erupted without warning. Asia's warriors struck with practiced precision while Ella and Arona raced to secure the archives. Lawrence found himself facing Nord directly. The pale man's combat style was as cold as his demeanor, efficient, lethal, without mercy. But Lawrence had learned from Asia, and more importantly, he had something worth fighting for. Their battle took them through the crystal corridors, each impact sending rainbow refractions dancing across the walls. Nord was stronger, but Lawrence had grown accustomed to the planet's unique gravity. "Your people wanted this," Nord snarled between strikes. "They chose you, an outsider, over their own kind." "They chose hope," Lawrence countered, remembering Treya's lessons about leadership. "Something you forgot how to offer." The fighting above intensified. Through the crystal ceiling they could see ships exchanging fire. But something was different. New vessels had arrived, their design clearly allied with the temple. "The other clans," Arona's voice carried triumph. "They received our warning." Nord's distraction cost him. Lawrence landed a decisive blow, sending the traitor crashing into a crystal column. As he fell, Asia's warriors secured him. "The slavers are retreating," Asia reported. "Without their inside man, they won't risk a prolonged fight." Ella emerged from the archives clutching their precious genetic records. "Everything's secure. We can begin correcting the damage they've done to our people." Later, as the three moons rose over the battle-scarred temple, Lawrence stood with his four closest advisors. Each of them had proved invaluable in their own way. Asia's strength, Ella's knowledge, Arona's heart, and Treya's wisdom. "The hard part begins now," Treya said softly. "Rebuilding, healing." "We'll face it together," Lawrence replied, feeling their unique bond. "All of us." A distant explosion lit the sky as the last slaver ship was driven from Murian space. The threat wasn't over. Lawrence knew Nord's allies wouldn't give up easily. But for now, they had won, and he was exactly where he needed to be. Lawrence woke early, the soft light of the moons barely fading from the horizon as the sun began to rise. He found himself standing at the highest spire of the temple, looking out over the vast expanse of Murian land below. The damage from the slavers' attack was significant, but already the people were at work. They moved with purpose, repairing the crystal structures, rebuilding what had been lost. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Lawrence turned to find Ella standing behind him. Her voice carried a hint of exhaustion, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. She had spent the night analyzing the data from their genetic archives, working tirelessly to uncover the truth behind their genetic crisis. Her blue skin glowed faintly in the morning light, and Lawrence couldn't help but admire her beauty, even now, after everything. "You found something," he said, noting the barely contained excitement behind her professional demeanor. "More than something." Ella's fingers danced across the surface of her crystal tablet as she stepped closer. "I've been studying your genetic markers against our historical records, comparing everything we have with the data from the slavers' sabotage." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Lawrence, you're not just compatible with our people. You're the solution we've been seeking for generations." He frowned, not entirely understanding. "The solution?" She stepped even closer, her breath warm against his skin. "Your genetic structure naturally counteracts the degradation the slavers introduced into our bloodline. If you have children with Murian women, those children would be healthy, balanced, both males and females." Lawrence felt a mix of emotions. The weight of what she was saying settled heavily on his shoulders. He had come to this world by accident, but it was clear now that his presence here was far from random. Ella blushed, a darker shade of blue coloring her cheeks. "Though, I must admit, part of me wishes I didn't have to share this discovery. Or you." Her flirtatious smile broke the tension, but the meaning behind her words was clear. She wanted him for herself, and Lawrence couldn't deny the growing connection between them. Before he could respond, Asia appeared, moving with her characteristic silent grace. She was dressed in her warrior attire, her muscles tense beneath her flawless blue skin. "The council is gathering," she said, her tone serious. "Nord's trial begins soon." Lawrence nodded, his mind already shifting from Ella's revelation to the next challenge, the trial. Nord would answer for his crimes, but there was still so much at stake. The future of the Murian people, their very survival, depended on the outcome of this day. The great hall was filled with tension as the council gathered. The air was thick with anticipation, the people whispering among themselves as Nord was brought before them. His pale blue form was bound, but he held himself with stubborn pride, his eyes cold and unrepentant. Treya stood at the center of the hall, her presence commanding. She was the voice of authority, earned through generations of leadership. "Nord of the Frost Valley clan, you stand accused of conspiracy with alien slavers, genetic sabotage of our people, and the attempted overthrow of legitimate authority." Nord's eyes flickered, but he said nothing. The trial progressed with methodical precision. Evidence was presented, witnesses called, and Nord's treachery was laid bare for all to see. But through it all, Nord remained defiant. His loyalty to his twisted vision of survival had blinded him to the harm he had caused. It wasn't until Lawrence stood to speak that the room fell silent. "This was never about survival," Lawrence said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "It was about power. You sold your people out for the chance to control them. You poisoned their bloodline, made them dependent on outsiders, all so you could maintain control." Nord sneered. "You think you understand us? You're an outsider. You don't belong here." Lawrence took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his next words. "Maybe I am an outsider, but I've fought for this world, for its people, and I've earned the right to stand here." The council murmured in agreement. The people of Murian had seen what Lawrence was capable of. He had led them in battle, protected their future, and now they were looking to him for guidance. Treya stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "The council has spoken. Nord, you are guilty of all charges. Your punishment will be exile. You will serve the rest of your days as a guard to the very man you tried to betray." Nord's face twisted in rage, but he didn't argue. His fate had been sealed, and there was nothing more he could do. Days turned into weeks as the Murian people began to rebuild. The scars of the battle remained, but slowly the crystal spires were repaired, the land healed. Lawrence threw himself into the work, leading by example. He worked alongside the people, earning their respect not just through his title, but through his actions. Ella and Lawrence grew closer during this time, spending many nights together. Their bond deepened, and it became clear that Lawrence was more than just a leader to her. He was the key to their genetic survival, the hope of a future where Murian children could be born without the threat of extinction hanging over them. But Ella wasn't the only one who felt this connection. Asia, with her fierce warrior spirit, had also found herself drawn to Lawrence. Arona, with her gentle heart, and Treya, with her wisdom, all saw in him the potential for something greater. One night, as they sat together under the 3 moons, Ella turned to him, her expression serious despite the flirtatious glint in her eyes. "You know what this means, don't you?" she asked. Lawrence nodded. He had thought about it often. The future of the Murian people rested on his shoulders, but it wasn't just a burden. It was an honor. "I don't like the idea of sharing you," Ella said, her voice teasing but honest. "But it seems I'll have to." Lawrence chuckled softly, his heart light despite the gravity of the situation. "I don't think you'll be the only one who feels that way." The day finally came when Lawrence was officially recognized as the leader of the Murian people. The ceremony was grand, held in the great hall where they had once fought for survival. The people gathered, their eyes filled with hope as Lawrence stood before them. Treya, Asia, Ella, and Arona stood beside him, their presence a testament to the unity they had forged. Together, they had rebuilt their world, and now they would lead it into the future. "In gratitude for all you have done," Treya said, her voice strong and clear, "the Murrian people recognize you, Lawrence, as our leader and as the husband to our most valued daughters." The crowd erupted into cheers, but Lawrence's mind was focused on the women beside him. Treya's wisdom, Asia's strength, Ella's knowledge, and Arona's heart. They were his family now, his future. Years passed, and the Murrian people thrived. The birth of both boys and girls became common once again, and the threat of extinction was a distant memory. Lawrence's children played in the temple gardens, their laughter echoing through the crystalline spires. Nord, once a traitor, now stood at Lawrence's side. He had been humbled by his exile, and over time he had come to understand the error of his ways. He was now Lawrence's most trusted ally, his right-hand man. The two of them worked together to protect the Murrian people, ensuring their future was secure. "I never thought I'd see the day," Nord said, watching as one of Lawrence's sons ran past him. "The day I'd be standing here, guarding you and your children." Lawrence smiled, clapping Nord on the shoulder. "Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Nord nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I was wrong about everything." "You've made up for it," Lawrence replied, "and you've earned your place here." As the two men stood together, surrounded by the next generation of Murrian children, Lawrence felt a deep sense of peace. His journey had begun with a crash landing on a world he had never imagined, but it had led him to a destiny he never could have dreamed of. A family, a people, and a future filled with love and hope. And he wouldn't have changed a thing. Well, dear listeners, if you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just survived a crash landing, a planetary trial, a near-extinction event, a few romantic entanglements, and a little bit of genetic engineering. No big deal, right? But let's be honest. Lawrence probably didn't expect to go from a humble engineer to the proud father of a whole new generation of beautiful, blue-skinned, perfectly proportioned Murrian children. Talk about an unexpected job promotion. So, next time you're having a bad day at the office, just remember, at least you didn't accidentally become the savior of an entire alien race. Perspective. And, as for the rest of you, don't act like you wouldn't mind being in Lawrence's boots, surrounded by gorgeous, intelligent alien women saving worlds and bringing balance to the galaxy. It's all in a day's work for a guy who just wanted to fix a satellite. But the real moral of the story? Always be prepared for a plot twist, especially if you're flying through space. You never know when you might crash land on a planet where you'll be crowned leader, husband, and genetic savior. Until next time, keep your spaceships in working order, and may your landings, intentional or not, be filled with unexpected adventure.